My Travel Wins podcast today is with choreographer, dancer, model, business owner, wife, and mom, Erin Lamont. Erin is the producer and choreographer of the Los Angeles-based burlesque group, the Lalas. The Lalas have traveled throughout the United States as well as internationally, including Australia, Japan, and Vietnam. Erin has always chosen to stay busy, whether it's being a choreographer for movies, commercials, music videos, or being the producer of her burlesque troupe, the Lalas. She's raising 2 daughters and has found a way to make it all work with the help of her supportive husband. Make sure to check out her links available on my website to connect with her or to find out where the Lalas will be performing next. Hey everybody, on my Travel Wins podcast today, I have Erin Lamont. How are you today, Erin?
I'm good, thank you.
Excellent. So you're a choreographer, a dancer, a mom,
Yes.
business owner.
Yes, correct.
I know you own the Lala's burlesque group, but how did that all get started being?
Well, I've always known that I wanted to be a dancer my whole life.
Sure.
And then once I moved to LA, or once I went to college, and prior to that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love choreographing. So I started choreographing and working in TV and live events and film and all that kind of stuff. And it just so happened that down the street, I live in Manhattan Beach with my husband and kids and dog. And before, the kids and the dog, we used to, go bar hopping, and, weekends were all about happy hour. And right down the street from us was a place like a martini bar. And my husband and I walked in, and there was a burlesque show. And I looked at him, I'm like, well, I can do that. And how cool would it be to get paid and be able to walk 2 blocks and have a couple drinks and go home. Yeah. And so I called the owner that Monday, and I said, I have a show, and I, completely pulled it out of, nowhere. And so I got a couple of my girlfriends together. I'm like, hey, do you want to make $100 and, get some drinks, and we'll just do something, and, people will come. And they said, sure. And that's pretty much how it got started. It was about 6 years ago. So
that's a great story, though.
Definitely evolved since then. But yeah, that was our humble beginnings, so to speak.
And so when you were a dancer, and then you were a dancer first, and then you became a choreographer, or
100%. Yeah, I took my first tap class at 7, and then I was hooked. I danced in TV. I feel like when I moved to LA, it was kind of a precedent where, this is just in my brain that I'm like, I have to be a dancer first and then build myself up to be a choreographer. And so
right.
I did that. And then all of a sudden one day I'm like, why am I doing this? I'd rather choreograph. And I kind of just switched it. And it just kind of fell in place.
It was kind of like, and maybe I'm way off base. It's just the only thing I can think of is like Paula Abdul.
Oh yeah, she's amazing.
Being a Laker girl, but then turning, became even more famous for being a choreographer.
Absolutely.
And then singing, obviously.
Right, Paula Abdul's amazing.
So that's
no doubt.
Cool though. How long have you had the burlesque show?
About 7 years, but I call it for real. We've been touring since 2013. So the first, 2-3 years or whatnot, they were just kind of like local, yokel.
Yeah.
This is great. And then we booked our first casino, and that's kind of when my eyes popped open. I'm like, okay, we can do this. And 800 people showed up to our first show.
Wow.
And so then I immediately hooked on. I'm like, okay, so we use that to kind of build and build and build. And now we're pretty busy. So I love it. It's so much fun.
How many performances do you do annually?
I would say at least 50. At least. So we're touring like 3, looks to be for the rest of the year, we'll be touring about 2 to 3 weekends a month. And that doesn't include local shows and local events, which we do. And funny enough, the burlesque shows, a lot of like corporate parties and events hire us. And
Sure.
So we do a lot around LA as well. So we're all over the place.
In a good way, though.
In a great way. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we're organized chaos, and yes, in a good way.
Going beyond that, obviously, you have 2 smaller children.
Yes.
And a husband.
Yes, and a husband.
And when you started this, it was kind of like, oh, we're going to do this. Now it's become, in the last couple of years, it's become this entity.
Correct.
Where you're 50 performances a year and all that. How has the balance been dealing with the family end of it?
It's just nonstop. And it's one of those things, like, once you decide to have a family and then you don't realize how hard it is. And then you're like, okay, and, and how do I still stay married? And how do I, try to, like, be happy and figure it out? And I feel like, Jesse, my husband, and I, we've struck this, like, perfect balance, because he actually travels during the week, and he's he's in sales. And so he's, traveling during the week, and then I'm gone on the weekend, and, depending on what day the show it is. So, for example, we were in Massachusetts last week for Valentine's Day. And then Friday morning, the bus picked us up, the shuttle to the airport in Connecticut at 2:30 in the morning. And then I, came back to LA, landed at 10, and then I'm like, okay, back straight to work, and then picked the kids up at school, and, had a whole day. And so it's a grind, but, you just learn you need to sleep on the plane. So, especially when you're jumping back into, like, kids that don't know that you didn't sleep 2 hours, and, and more importantly, they don't care.
And
They're like,
care.
I'm hungry. Where's my food? Come on.
It's mom time now.
Mm-hmm.
When were you? I don't know exactly how old your kids are, but were you pregnant?
I was, and so with my first kid, I was like, it was like a secret. I was like secret pregnant, because I was still doing like a dance TV job. I did a job for CSI, one of the shows for them, and I was about 4 months pregnant. But I was like a solo dancer on stage, and I'm like, okay, so I'm just going to hush. And then obviously, later in the pregnancy, I stopped, but I never stopped working. Like, my husband has this picture of me, like, in bed, like in the hospital bed before, like, giving birth to a baby. And I'm like on the phone, I'm like closing a show, and so it's not work to me. I'm just, like my mom says, I'm like a dog with a bone. Like, I don't stop. So, it's not, I can't relax is what I'm saying to you, I think.
and that's a good thing. I mean, that's
it is.
For me, I travel, weeks at a time, but then I'm home for weeks. So
right.
I really learned to value the time when I'm home more so.
Oh my gosh. And coming home, landing at LAX, I'm like going to the South Bay. I'm like, oh, yes. And then, a couple days later, you go again. So it always just feels good to come home.
Yeah, but like I said, I think for me, if I was home for full time, you kind of take things for granted.
100%.
Now when I come home, I'm like, okay, now I've got to schedule things, so I got to go back on the road. But I got to take my wife. We got to have date night. I got to get the dentist in. I got to
pull it together. Yeah.
See if my daughters are around, because both my daughters are college graduates now.
Oh wow,
and,
cool.
Yeah, so there's light at the end of the tunnel for you, Erin.
I don't believe you, but thank you for that.
I'm telling you, the best day of my life, I always tell people, was when both my daughters stopped growing.
Wow.
Because then I could buy clothes and not have to buy new clothes in 6 months.
Agree. Especially shoes. I'm there with you.
I don't mind if they wear them out, but brand new shoes that they never wear anymore because they don't fit.
Oh, yeah. I'm with you.
And then the weirdest time was, I remember coming home, and both my girls were in college. I'm like, and it was Saturday, and I'm like, what do I want to do today?
Yeah, you got the whole day yourself.
Yeah, no birthday parties, no sports games, no soccer games, no lacrosse games, brought me here, picked me up. Oh
my gosh, that sounds amazing. I know both my babies, they're in dance class, and I'm mortified. So, but we'll see. I'm one of those. I'm like, I really want you to just be happy and do what you want. I'm going to try to give you everything I can, and then they're like, we want to dance, and I'm like, crap. Okay. So
both my daughters played lacrosse all the way, and one of them all the way into college.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like every weekend. It was like, you got
you have a thing, every weekend.
Yeah. Not my thing, their thing.
Right.
So there's hope. Do you have hopes to slow down as your girls get older or your kids get older?
No. I love it because I think being away, oddly enough, makes me a better mom and wife too, because when I'm away, I mean, I'm freaking exhausted. It's like an 18-hour show day, And then, like I said, I'm always on a 6 a.m. wherever we are to go back. But, you know, at that time, it just feels like, you know, I'm just like, I own this company. I'm a woman. I'm a badass. And I'm like, I love doing that. And then I come home and then, you know, I'm a mom too. So it gives me, you know, the freedom and time that I love. And it, you know, I know that I'm good at my job. And so, you know, it feels good to then come back and then I have that balance. And if I didn't have that, I don't want to think about how I'd be because it makes me happy even when I'm sleep deprived and jet lagged. So,
well, even, you know, I've been traveling for a long time, but the advent of technology, you know, really helps. I mean,
100%.
FaceTime, you know, so I could see what my daughters were doing. They could actually show me their homework when I was out on the road.
Oh, that's great.
You know,
see, I go for short stints, so I don't even really talk to my kids when I'm gone. I'm like, I text my husband. I'm like, oh crap, I didn't talk to you today. How are the kids? Good. And he's like, good night. I'm like, cool.
See ya. You need to go on a longer world tour.
I guess so. You know what? It's in the works. So, you know, maybe they'd come with me if that was the case. So
that was cool too. I remember when my girls were in high school and like over the summer, sometimes they would go out on the trips with me.
Mhm.
And so that was kind of cool. So they could see what I did when I was gone.
Right.
And see that it's not all parties, you know.
It's not?
It's not.
Yeah, my girls come to rehearsals locally, and they're like, what does mommy do? And I'm like, oh, my gosh. I'm like, just here's your iPad. And then all they want to do is dance with, you know, my dancers. And then I'm like, okay, you know, my grown-ass dancers who are 26 years old, I'm like, please focus and stop playing with my 6-year-old. Let's get this done. So but they're thick as thieves, they are.
Yeah, my girls are 23 and 25.
Wow.
So they're right in
2 years apart.
Right in that mix. Now, how many dancers do you have in your basic troupe, I guess?
So there's up to 6 in a show, but I have 11 pretty much in rotation.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, because they, you know, some go on tour, some, you know, are booked out. Some, you know, it's just, you know, they're.
Some stay local or. Some
of them stay local. It depends. Like one's on tour with Muse right now. One just booked Cher's tour, so she's like gone for the year, and so it's, you know, it's a constant change. But I love that too because we're performing so much that I don't want to see the same show with the same dancers every time either. You know, I have my core group of like 3 or 4 that I use predominantly, but you know, when they're not available, I'm constantly changing the show, which, you know, keeps it fresh, keeps it fun.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you because, you know, but it also makes it a little more stressful for you because then you have more 100%.
There's more time, more costumes, more fittings, more you know, rehearsals, more everything.
And how is that dealing? Because you have your own family to deal with, and your dancers are an extension of your family.
100%, yeah.
If they're having a bad time or issue, it's your issue now.
It 100% is. And we had a show in Hawaii in November, and you know, my husband and I haven't been to Hawaii. The first time I went was when I was 30, and so, you know, we've gone like 7 times in 5 years. I mean, we just love it. I mean, what's not to love? And so finally, you know, the Lawless had a show there, and I'm like, oh, should we take them? I'm like, they don't deserve it. And Jesse's like, of course they don't deserve it. But I'm like, we feel kind of bad. This is our 8th time. And so we took them, and we all stayed in the house, and, you know, the dancers and my kids and all under one roof. And they're like, you know, they, you know, get to go out and party and hang out. And I try to. And then, you know, who's up at 6 a.m.? My kids. And then, you know, they roll out at 11, and they're like, whoa. And I'm like, exactly.
So you're
full-time gig. Yeah, North Shore.
Yeah, okay. I've won accounts on Oahu. I've one on Maui and one on the Big Island. So I get the island. And for some reason, my wife is always available for that trip.
Isn't that odd? That is so funny. It's just crazy. Yeah,
my Fresno trip, she's busy.
Yeah, I'm too busy for Fresno. I agree. I'm right there with her.
Yeah. You know, South Dakota, North Dakota, she's busy.
Yeah, those are flyover states. Those don't count.
Hawaii, calendar's wide open.
Yeah, I agree. It's the place that you can always go back. You know, I'm like, oh, I want to go somewhere different, or, oh, you know, if it's just for like, I get to choose or a vacation or whatnot, I don't want to go to the same place twice, except when it's Hawaii. I'm like, we go to Hawaii every year.
Yeah. I get to go there for work. It's a tax write-off, which is nice.
That is nice.
But it's still work, so I have to get my work done. And then island hopping sounds fun, but it's not when you have samples and you're carrying stuff. And
well, checking bags is no fun. I usually check 6. So.
Yeah. Oh my God. Your costumes are out of control.
Yeah, no, tell me about it. It's a good problem. It's like, this is my business. It needs to go on a show. I'm like, we just performed in, almost all at the MGM. I'm like, this is a legit show. But I'm like, there's so much crap. And I'm such a non-checker. If I have to be gone somewhere for 2 weeks, I'm in my roller carry-on, no problem. But it's so ironic that I'm being weighed down by 6 70-pound bags of costumes.
You must. Do you make your own costumes, or do you have?
I do. No, I looked into it when we, when we were in that more of a local yokel kind of show, and it was really expensive to either buy or, have someone else make them. So I started to YouTube how to sew, and I bought a sewing machine. So I would say about 60 to 70% of the costumes that I've made, and then I have an assistant that she does like all the hard stuff. Don't look too closely at my designs, but I'm like, I know how to sew on rhinestones. So I'm almost there. But she went to school for it, so she really knows.
You must be down at the fashion district quite a bit.
I am. Usually weekly. I joke, but I'm like, I really have my own parking spot at one of these places, because the owner's like, you can park just right there. I'm like, that's employees. He's like, you can park there. I'm like, that's because I spend hundreds of dollars at your store every time I come.
What's that big? What's it? Not Michael's, but is it Michael's?
Michael Levine's.
Michael Levine. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's right next to there. So.
Yeah. Yeah, because I have one account down there, but then my wife sews her own bags and stuff. So when I have to go down there, she'll go with me and pick. We've been into that store, and it's huge.
Oh yeah, my kids go with me too. And then I'm like, crap, I need to bring cash because those street vendors just suck the kids in. I'm like, gosh, here's $5. Yeah, and then they get the hats. I'm like, you don't need another tank top. They're like, it's $2. I'm like, fine.
You got the $2 everything in the store. $2 store.
6 for $10. 6 for $10.
You get the black trash bag, and you're good to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Know all about that, because I sell Western clothing and cowboy boots.
Oh, okay.
So I travel up and down selling to all the Western retail stores, and then I have Boot Barn, which is nationwide.
Mhm.
So I'm in the apparel business as well.
Yeah, you know it.
It's fun. What advice would you give to somebody that has to travel with kids?
Oh my God, I just travel with my kids. I was on a 4.5-hour delay it was just me, and we met. I'm actually in Seattle right now, and we met my husband up here. So it was 2 against 1, and the flight was supposed to take off at 10, and it left at like 2:45. So, it's just kind of, you're at the mercy. And I used to get so stressed, like missing a plane or blah, blah, blah. Like there's literally nothing you can do. So, I mean, I just go up to Delta Sky Club and have a drink and chill. And so I just stopped worrying about it, and at the start I was like, I usually travel with like at least 9 people. I'm like, are they going to make their flight? They're not here yet, and I travel. One of the 9 is a male. He's our technical director, and he's like, I don't see SA. And I'm like, she's going to figure out how to get there. She's not going to get paid. I'm like, my advice is just, you got to go with the flow. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah. That's also advice, actually, because that's literally what I have to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I just talked to my boss yesterday. He had a 10.5-hour flight delay.
Oh my God.
He was going from Cleveland to Denver.
It's weather, total weather.
He was the first flight was delayed 2.5 hours because the blower wouldn't get the engine started. And then so he switched flights. They had to go back to the gate, get off the plane, deboard. Then he had to buy another ticket that took him to D.C. to go to Denver. But then it got delayed in D.C. to Denver. So
I mean,
crazy.
Yeah,
But it is
I mean, what are you going to do when Minnie has one runway? Well, are you going to cry a lot or are you just going to sit, So,
yeah.
But we didn't travel with our kids until my first one. My oldest is very, very chill, calm, like level-headed. My youngest is crazy. So my first one, we traveled when she was like 3 months, and she's an amazing traveler.
Yeah.
And so my second one, we traveled with her. We gave it a test shot because my parents live in Vegas. LAX to Vegas is a 42-minute flight. Yep. She screamed and foamed at the mouth all 42 minutes. And so she didn't fly until last year. So, now we can fly with the kids, and they're pretty cool. They're normal. But, I mean, she was on a ground delay for like a year because I was like, oh, she's like bucking the seat. I'm like, there's nothing that I can do. I'm like, you're making, her sit in her own seatbelt, and she's crying. Put in your earbuds.
It's so funny because my oldest, whether we went on a car trip or a road trip or in a plane, she's asleep within the first 5 minutes.
Oh, that's great.
Like completely passed out, dead. My younger daughter wouldn't sleep for $1 million.
Yeah, it like fires her up to like try. Yeah, I know. I'm with you. But in both of them, it's happened because they've built up. We took them both to Michigan last year because that's where I'm from, and we took them to Michigan, and they're both, so angelic, but they fall asleep on the landing. Both of them.
God.
They've done it like 3 to 4 times. This is like a 4-hour flight. I'm like, they're jazzed up. They get their little pop or their soda, and they get their little meal because most of the time we get upgraded. And then they freaking crash. They're like, we have been cleared for landing. Ding, and then they're out. And so then you just lug them through the airport.
What part of Michigan are you from?
I'm sorry.
What part of Michigan are you from?
Oh, well, for the Clarkston, which is by Waterford. Yeah, I started in Pontiac, went to Waterford, went to Clarkston, and then went to Western in Kalamazoo, and then went to LA.
Yeah, my wife's from Fraser.
Oh, yeah.
She lives north of Detroit, yeah.
There's a hockey. My older brother played hockey, and I remember there's always a hockey arena in Fraser.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and then she moved to Vegas and worked at a casino for almost 20 years, and then she's been here for 5 years.
Cool. South Bay ain't a bad place to be.
It doesn't suck right now compared to Detroit.
Yeah, no kidding.
And she said her aunt's still in Warren, and it was high of 17.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my wife has like this romantic feeling about Detroit. Like, oh, I want to move back there someday. I'm like, you're crazy.
Really?
Yeah.
I think what romanticizes everyone about Michigan, I mean, obviously, unless you're from there, is that you can get a mansion for $250.
Yeah,
that's what it is. I think.
I mean, I got a buddy, one of our reps that works for us is in Alabama, lives in Alabama, and when we were at the sales meeting in Denver, he's showing me these homes for sale in Alabama. Like, are you 10 acres. Brand new construction, 5,000 square foot house, pool or a pond with fish, $195,000.
Oh my gosh!
I told him, and he didn't believe me. But we went on Zillow. I said, you couldn't buy an apartment in Compton for that.
No way. They're at least $350.
Yeah, and he's like, no. So we pulled it up. He's like, oh my God, dude.
Yeah, I mean, to each their own. But I live in a 800 square foot house in Manhattan Beach, and I couldn't be happier. But different strokes.
My wife and I say the same thing as we ride our bikes down the Strand and all that.
Oh yeah.
Got to enjoy it. What do you use any other apps or anything while you're on the road? In
terms of travel?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Delta. I'm a Delta. I will connect if they don't have a nonstop. Obviously that. But to book my flights, I use Hopper. I started doing Hopper and Priceline. So, and then depending on, I started to educate myself on, the right Amex to have to get the most points and yada, yada, yada. So I got the Amex Platinum and then National Rent-A-Car. So then I'm just realizing I most of the time get upgraded to First, and then I get to Sky Club for free, and then I walk to my rental car and I can pick whatever one I want. And so, I feel like if you use the system the right way, it really helps you out compared to sitting in a terminal on a delay and, that kind of thing. So.
Are you TSA pre? Or
oh, yeah, clear.
Yeah.
I'm clear.
Clear. I was going to say clear.
Oh, yeah. And so one time, it was actually at SeaTac, my husband and I were traveling back to LA, and we went in the wrong line, and we had to, take our computers out. We're like, what is this?
What are we doing?
What are we doing? We have to walk across the airport to not do that.
You're going to have to get global entry.
I know. I do need to get that.
Start taking Lala's internationally. You have to get global entry.
Yeah, we hopefully have a UK tour this summer for 2 weeks. And but we're in Canada twice up next month. We're up in Edmonton, and then we're up in Vancouver as well. So we're getting there. We're creeping out internationally. So
is there much? And the only thing I know about the burlesque shows are like the Pussycat Dolls.
Sure.
And then my niece is a burlesque dancer in Paris.
Oh yeah, Moulin Rouge.
No, there's another show. I forget the name of the show. She's gonna kill me if she hears this. But, but so you have the dedicated shows that are, and Vegas has the burlesque shows that are a fixed location. But are you? How many traveling burlesque shows are there?
One. There's no one that does what we do.
Okay.
And that's not to sound like a sneak, but it's just fact.
No. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
What are the disadvantages of being the traveling show? I mean, obviously, the Vegas shows in Paris and that, it must be nice to have a fixed location.
Yeah, if a Vegas residency was offered, I wouldn't, turn it away. So, but I want both. I love the freedom of being able to change the show. And, when we have a Vegas residency, it's going to be, if it's a year long, whatever it is, every 6 weeks, the show's going to change. I'm like, you want a Valentine's Day themed show? You want, a Christmas holiday show, so I love, even if it is fixed in one location, it won't be the same show with the same girls the whole time.
Well, and technically, I guess you could have both, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You could have a traveling troupe and then have your fixed location troupe.
Sounds great to me. Sign me up.
Done.
Cool.
Glad we worked that out, Erin.
I know. It's so easy. What's next?
Yeah. Well, that's cool. So, I super appreciate the time.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. It was fun.
What do you have any shows coming up in the LA area?
LA, no. And so LA is kind of our tester local market. And so the way we've only done LA once. We were in Long Beach 3 weeks ago. And then, the Federal in downtown. Yeah. And so we do the Federal Underground, and then I do the Federal North Hollywood as well. But we haven't done that so far this year. Next week we're in Albuquerque, and then we go to Edmonton, and then we go to Vancouver, and then we fly, which is I've never done before. We fly into Montreal, and then we cross into Hogansburg, New York. That's also our next show. So that'll be interesting.
That's crazy. What's the best way for people to find out what's going on?
Yeah, if you want to go to our website, it's thelalas.com, THELALAS.com, or you can find us on Instagram at thelalas.
Yeah, and I'll make sure I put that in the bio so they can just find you real easy.
Cool.
But now I want to see a show, but I'll have to travel.
Well, maybe we'll be traveling we'll be in the same spot,
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe Hawaii again. I'll take it.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
And when you get your residency in Vegas, I'll say it's all because of me.
Yeah, honestly, and then you can just hop on my private jet, and then we'll just go over.
That'd
no problem.
Nice,
make your wife available for that one too. Yeah, you can just go right in. Yeah.
Well, my wife teaches Pilates, so.
Oh, cool. She loved the show. The show's date night. That's most everyone in the audience. So. Yeah, well,
my wife still does ballet.
Oh, cool.
So she's still taking ballet classes in San Pedro.
So she knows.
She's doing 2 days a week. That's her break away from Pilates. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'll definitely have to check out a show at some point. So.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. And
all right. Well, thank you so much. Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. Have a great day.
Thanks, Erin. Bye-bye.
Bye.